How's it going, everybody? Todd Medina, SoulogyOneStudios. How about a little soul revival? You know, where we praise the one thing the whole world told us all these years not to look. What do you think we came here for? This life. It's a choice, not a chore. We have denied, defied, ignored, with a little help to keep us in the dark from the devil's cabals and the Illuminati. But they were our creation, just like the racism, sexism, homophobia wars, and all the isms. But can't you see the power of the words, I gotta be me? That's how we light this world up. We are the spark and the flame. Things aren't the same anymore. What are you living for? Something you were told, never questioned, follow the rules. But who made those rules? The same ones who taxed our lives, ill-contrived, full of lies, taking profits, making them gods. All the time using them to keep us at odds with each other. Creating ownership, a violation of universal law. Can't you see if it's not good for the universe, it's not good for you and me? So don't think when you take a stand, identify with a clan, a political brand, a culture, a color, label, a creed. It's the darkness you feed. Yeah, that's right. Like it or not, what you hate you see is the I am in you and me. But we're better than that, because this world cannot hold back the power of even one soul. But we gotta try. No place to hide. Truth abides, and we are the dream that never dies. How's it going, everybody? Todd Medina, Soulogy Network. This is our show, Soul Speaks 5D. We're waiting for our guest. They're having a little power outage over there where she's at in South Africa, but she has backup, so we're going to see if we can't pull this off. I think we ought to turn some music on while we're waiting. Let's see if we got sound. Hey, Joanne Dunn from Scotland. Jennifer Peterson. I love getting down. Music mode, good night. And good night, everyone. Yeah. Let's see. Got a little delay here. Oh, here she comes. Here we go. Let's see. Can you hear me?
I sure can. I'm just trying to see how to connect my video.
So we're already live, so anything you say can and will be held against you.
Good. That's exciting.
Oh, let me turn you on. This image that you're projecting out here reminds me of that meme, you know, with on Facebook when the guys are always sending pictures to women, and the woman says, I'm going to send you a naked picture of me," and it's all black like that.
Hold on, here it comes.
Is it
I don't know
coming?
how to connect my. I don't know
There
how
we
to connect
go.
my proper. Yeah, but this look at this camera. This isn't the one that I usually use because
Yeah,
it has
yeah.
this
It looks fine.
thing
It looks.
happening.
What's happening to
Hello.
it? Hello. Hello. Good morning. We got
Good morning
Croatia
and
in the
good evening
house.
to you.
Yeah, we got Manchester, England's in the house. Scotland's in the house. Netherlands is in the house. And
Hi.
Glastonbury's in the house. You know who that is? Is it Glastonbury or Gastonbury? I never can. I have a trouble with that.
There's an L there, Glastonbury.
Glastonbury, yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, we got Norway's in the house. Right, we got people from all over. Yeah, so this is cool because we're all about integrating friends, and we're going to talk a little bit about what you've been doing and how long you've been doing it. I'm talking about getting out there and doing the shows you've been doing. But let me formally roll the show out because there might be some people in here that
Cool.
I see some new faces in here. It's New Zealand's in the house, Romania. Man, we've got about 15 countries in here. So this is for those of you who don't know, this is a Soulogy network. This is, I believe, our 600 and I had the number. I think it's 653,
Wow.
654, something like that. Episode of the Soul Speaks 5D. It's a conversation, and today it's with Kerry Samahdi out of South Africa. And welcome to the show, and thank you for sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here, Todd. Thank you.
So you guys having a power outage over there?
Yes, in South Africa we have this thing called load shedding, and it's a terrible thing that affects all businesses and all homes. So what they do is they cut area by area, 4 hours a day, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. They cut your power completely. So it's wreaking havoc on the country at the moment.
That's pretty. I mean, that's interesting because of of everything everything going on. That South Africa, which you would think is a pretty well-to-do country, I would think. I know there's a lot of people there. I've heard Johannesburg is huge. I had a friend of mine that lived there. But I thought they only did stuff like that in third world countries like Cuba. They always turn the electricity off in Cuba, or they used to. I don't know if they still do. That's pretty crazy. So how long have they been doing that?
Years. This country's become very third world. It's become very backwards, lack of maintenance, lack of infrastructure. So it's something that will either unite or divide the country. And it's yet to be seen which one it's going to do. But when a country realizes that the government has screwed them over, they're going to do one of two things. They're going to turn on each other or turn to each other.
Well, I think we're living in an age now when they're going to turn to each other. Well, there's probably going to be two groups. There's going to be two groups, and one we can call one fear and one love. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's very indicative of what's going on the planet at the moment. So
yeah, absolutely it is. And without even having been there, just kind of knowing the energy of it, as we all know, we're more telepathic and we can and do read energy. It's just a matter of recognizing it now. That South Africa is a very powerful place.
It is.
I mean, you've got extreme polarities there. You've got natural. I'm sure, without even going there, natural portals and powerful vortexes and stuff like that. So now your description, your bio, which is really cool. It's probably the coolest bio out of 650 plus shows. Kerry K. Samahdi is a field of awareness. It is the, quote, I remember who I am, unquote, moment we all long for. What does that mean?
We all long for that moment of going, I remember what this is. I remember beyond the veil, who I am, what I'm doing here, what this is about. It's the pivotal moment, I believe, for anybody's lifetime, when they can see beyond this life into their infinite true selves and say those words, I remember.
Yeah. And do you think that because now I got to tell you, we did a show. I went on to your show when I got to Hawaii, which was I think 4.5 weeks ago. And it totally screwed me up because, I was on the East Coast. I always booked on New York time. And I haven't gone on too many other people's shows, which wasn't a big deal. But when I got over here, it was right after daylight savings time hit, and it doesn't happen here, and it happens in other places. And my clock was all, my biological daily clock was all messed up, and I was having visitations from all this dragon energy. And it was like really early in the morning, and I was having problems with the internet. And I had a show with Judith Cassell out of South Africa, and I didn't have any service. I couldn't even contact her. I couldn't even get on to my phone. Didn't work, and I couldn't do it. And then I jumped on your show, and I was really in dimension. I don't even remember the show. It's like a dream. I remember we talked about dragons and a few things like I was like formulating some questions or things that I was curious about. I think, didn't we already talk about this? But anyway, so we met. Yeah, it was. And so I was just going to say that, so I was like, okay, this, I kind of got the vibe that was the main thing. Energetically, I totally connected with you and my dearest sister, Amanda Lawrence. I know she connected with you because I could see it, in many ways. And so we had this connection. And so you just making that statement about the individual remembering, do you feel that because you said this is like the greatest thing you can experience in your lifetime is to have that moment. Do you feel that there's strong evidence that this is also a very special time, a very unique time, maybe the most unique time for the collective as well?
Without even a shadow of a doubt. We clamored to be here at this time. We worked hard to be here at this time. We did everything. We planned for millennia to be here at this time. That's how important this time is.
Yeah.
And then I often hear people go, oh, why am I here now?
Yeah, like somebody put him here, like they made him walk the plank or something.
Yeah, like they filled in the wrong form and they landed up in the wrong place.
They filled in the wrong form. I think what it is the non-conformers came. The ones who keep pushing the envelope and say, hey, we're creation. Let's, we've done this, been there, done that. Let's do something else. I always make the joke, as soon as we get back, I'm going to be the first one to come back down the chute. And I've had a lot of people tell me, you go ahead, I'm not coming back.
They will.
Oh, yeah. But now this is interesting too. I'm not even going to preface this, but so do you also, what are your thoughts on that we came back specifically for a cause, a reason, in terms of, let's say, the universal pure, the one singular universal timeline, maybe that's the way I might put it, a mission to correct some things or something like that. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. And I really, really resonate with that. What I do in my one-on-one work, which is really slowing down at the moment, I'm really focusing much more in groups, but in the one-on-one work that I do something which I call a soul reading. And a soul reading is exactly that. It's to connect with that being's soul, to get a sense of their soul trajectory and their soul journey and what this is about for them. So it is looking at the big why, the why am I here and the what is this about? And in so many of those soul readings, Todd, I connect with people who are absolutely here to correct something or to affect change, but not just change. See, this is the thing. It's not just change in this little bubble of reality, which we call planet Earth or third dimension. There's a ripple effect that people forget about. It's not just this little bubble. What happens here ripples into higher dimensions, ripples throughout the entire galactic plane. There is so much resting on this. And not out of a sense of pressure, but out
Yeah,
of a
yeah,
sense of great joy, we really get to affect change here and now.
yeah. No,
So,
I totally agree with you. And it's almost to me like if you look at it as just as energy or consciousness, and we're the children, so to speak. It's almost like in the family environment or a friend
yeah,
environment where you've got to push them out of the nest and let them
yeah,
figure it out on their own. So you're in good
yeah.
hands at the endless end. You're in the arms of Mother Universe, but at the same time, she ain't gonna come in to save us. We
Yeah,
are her, and that's the whole point of I remember.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, but
yeah,
so
exactly.
I find that interesting too, and then also it's like, yeah, at one point, because for years I got all this galactic history and all these memories of fight in the dark, and I get killed, and I come back, and I come back, and and then lately, over the last 2 or 3, 4 months, there's a new spin on it, and that spin is accepting, and I did this a couple of years ago, accepted all aspects of dark and light as deep as I could go, and it was very moving. It's 2.5 years ago, but
Yeah,
now it seems like you have to put it into, you have to be that. And so I've had like mergings with reptilians and brought them into my heart and different things like that.
yeah,
So it's like we're here to correct something, but
mm,
that correction isn't like, protesting, marching, boycotting.
yeah.
It's actually within yourself, and truly accepting all things, because you can't BS Mother Universe.
I think it's got a lot to do with no exclusions.
Yes.
Because it's one thing to know we're here for unity consciousness. It's one thing to know we're here to become heart-based beings, but it's a complete contradiction to know that and then reject the darkness.
Yes. Yes. And
Yeah,
and that makes it really interesting, because
yeah,
we use the term fear-based programming. We'll just use that for the sake of the conversation. Everything that's not real is a program. I mean, as much as there is an ascension truth, there's also an ascension program.
yeah,
Everything has the polarities, and so it makes it real interesting. But at the end of the day, it's an infinite simplicity, and beautiful infinite simplicity, because it just involves the heart, really. I mean, if you want to put it in human terms, and you either accept something or you don't, and if you don't accept it, then you are the reason of the separation. There's no other way to
yeah.
put it.
Yeah, and you maintain through your non-acceptance without realizing it, you maintain separation.
Yeah.
And so as we come into acceptance of our own darkness and our own self, we then step into our own wholeness, and that changes the paradigm, that changes the program
Mm.
into true unity consciousness. I think that we're very deluded when it comes to what love is and
Yeah.
what unity consciousness is, because we expect that it's going to be all roses and we expect that it's going to be all pretty. And we're used to separation, we're used to the mentality of separation, and we cannot apply that same mentality in unity consciousness. So
No.
there's a real inner growing that takes place when we come into balance and into alignment.
Yeah.
Because in the past, Todd, people always used to talk about healing. They used to say, oh, I've got to heal this relationship with my mom, for example, or I've got to
Yeah.
heal this belief, or I've got to heal whatever. And I think if we change the word heal to balance,
Yeah.
we get a better
Definitely.
understanding of what healing
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Healing is definitely a 3D paradigm word. And what's interesting too, I started doing this thing, hashtag the human is the hero. And
Mhm.
I've since evolved a little bit from that, because seeing things from, I guess, from a higher perspective, multidimensionality, and some of my other aspects, and that type of thing, higher self. I realized that the human, in one sense, is a very, very small part of this, but in the other sense,
Mhm.
it is the opposite polarity. It's the biggest part of this.
Yeah.
And so, we sought, all these years, even before 2012 or whatever, and, philosophies, religions, practices, Zen, Buddhism, things like that. And, and it's like all that stuff is kind of going away because it all gets back to the human to the human. So it's like it's not about all the books and the gurus and the yogis and all this sacred wisdom speak. It's just like, hey, it's something as simple as I like you, let's have a relationship, let's connect now and then, or we don't align or something. We're just different vibrations, and you respect that and you love that person and you move on. But it's like you said, it's deeper than that, just kind of love and light thing. It's more complex than that. And we've been conditioned to be in comfort in that separation. It's been easy for us to say, oh, I'm a Catholic, or, oh, I'm an American, or I'm a man, and you're not. You know what I mean? So that's interesting.
We got so caught up with the isms, and our beliefs align with some or other ism. And I see people, Todd, who are fighting all the isms, like they're fighting against racism or feminism or whatever it is. And of course, we know that they're the ones actually holding all of this in focus. And I really feel that it's a lot more simple, like ascension, evolution. It's a lot easier and a lot more simple than we've ever allowed ourselves to believe. Yeah. It really is as simple as just focus on your own wholeness.
Yeah.
Do nothing else. Do nothing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every time we say they're not woke up, we're not woke up. You know what I mean? I mean, and there's a part of us, all of us, that's not woke up. Like Amanda talks about the what is it, like a fabric or a membrane, and as we have these moments, we pierce it and then pierce more and pierce more. But that human part of it is still the conscious, operator. Morgan calls it the manager. The human is the manager. So that free will, which I think is the strength and the weakness of the human soul hybrid species, is the whole thing. It's like merging that free will with the heart, and the universe in the third corner of that triad. That is the Trinity. Free will is a magical, powerful, creative element that I think is not easily given away in the universe. It's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. You spoke about hashtag the human is the hero, and I see both sides of that coin, where the human can be what we often refer to as the human aspect. We'll talk about, my human is feeling XYZ, or the human in me. I even use that terminology. So it's that belief of the human being the smallness in us, and the shame in us, and the separation in us. But within the human, there are sacred seats of the soul. And, there's been a huge movement that I've watched unfold for perhaps the last couple of months and even the last couple of years towards understanding parts of the human physiology that make us aware of ourselves as God beings, like the pineal gland, like the higher heart, where if we can focus our attention into the human, and within the human find the God self, the infinite I remember space. Because it's actually inside our biology. It's inside our physiology and our biology, and it's not beyond us. It's not outside of us.
That's right. Yeah.
So the human is the hero. Yes and no. Both.
No, it's like everything in the universe. There's always that side and this, and that's what I was saying. So we're like on this path where we're like looking for the answer, and then you get down. When you get right down to it, it's a very human consciousness kind of thing. The control is right there, where the human and the soul and the ego and everything meets right here, and you have all those voices, and at the end of the day, your free will is okay. I'm going to do this. But the thing is now, like my friend said here when we were talking tonight, is that everything is becoming very, very obvious now. There's either what's not true, we call illusion or programming or whatever you want to call it, false timeline, distorted timeline, and then there's the truth. And it's at every level, especially in here, where you can't get away with anything from yourself, which is the universe. And then, Lisa Brown says the same thing you did, which is ascension. We're consciousness, but ascension, it includes everything. So it includes the body. You can't just like ascend and leave the body. The body's transforming.
Can I tell you how difficult it is? One of the hardest things I've got to do with people, because I teach people to meditate, and I love it, because people come to me and they say things like, either I can't meditate, that's something I hear very often, because I'm too busy, or my mind is too frenetic, or whatever the case may be. And I think there's a general misunderstanding of what meditation really is, because people think I've got to now go into a space and numb my mind out to a blank slate, which of course that's the end result of the meditation process. Yeah. It's not how we necessarily begin. We begin with our frenetic, panicked, chaotic, out of balance selves as we are, and we move into the process of acceptance and then enlightenment. But this is the hard part for me. When I teach people how to journey, which is ultimately what a meditation is, it's a journey into themselves. And when I teach them how to journey, do you know where they want to go? Everything in them wants to go out and explore the universe, or explore creation, or just be floating somewhere in some ethereal realm. So I spend a lot of focus and a lot of time telling them, feel your feet, get back in your body. And they resist that. They give me a because they're going, oh God, it's so pretty where I am. I just want to go there. And the moment they realize that ascension happens in the vehicle, in the physical vehicle that you're in, it changes the relationship to the body, and it shifts focus from this body being something we must get out of to something that we must get into.
Yeah, that's a profound explanation. An analogy, really. It's like a twist of an analogy and an explanation, because you're right. And I'm just thinking about the 3 years I've been with Morgan, and she was the first person I ever talked to that said the same thing, basically. Like she'd say, I'd say, I my back hurts. She says, well, why don't you pull up that energy of your back hurting and see what it's got to tell you. And so, it reminds me, as you were telling me that too, of that old Rick Moranis movie where they Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I think they go into the human body, or one of those Disney movies where they actually go into the body, like Jules Verne did, Center of the Earth, Journey to the Center of the Earth. But you're right about that. I mean, you're right about that. If you go back to the last century, it was, who was it? Einstein and all his contemporaries were looking for the God key. And they found that as you go in, it's as infinite as you go out. So it was like, you can't do it,
I love what you just said about how infinite it is in here, because one of the biggest epiphanies that we can have is the experience of the vast infinite space within ourselves, and I think people, unless you've had the experience, it's an easy one to misunderstand. So I really want to take the listeners through what I'm talking about. Inside the brain, between the two hemispheres of the brain, it's literally in the center of the two hemispheres. And if you were to draw a line there and in the back of your head, and you were to draw a line over here, you would get to the pineal gland. And a lot of people know what the pineal is, right? What they may not realize is that the pineal gland is tiny. It's almost the size of a grain of rice and mostly smaller.
Wow. I didn't know that.
And here's something else that's amazing about the pineal gland. When you look at it from the outside, it's obviously called the pineal gland because it looks like a pine cone. That's where it gets its name from. But when you look at it from the outside, it's completely fractal in nature. So you're looking at, imagine now we're blowing it up and we're looking at what would look very similar to a pine cone. And we looked at an individual pine kernel on that cone. we're going to see a whole other pineal gland.
Yeah.
And then we're going to look into that, magnify it as many times as we can, and we're going to keep seeing the fractal nature, first of all, of the pineal gland, and then of ourselves, ultimately. But the other mind-blowing thing about the pineal gland, mind-blowing, no pun intended, is the pineal gland, as tiny as it is, conceptualize the grain of rice, but it's almost smaller. It's hollow.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that? It's empty.
There we
it's
go.
Hollow.
Yeah. Just like when they break down. Yeah.
That's the infinite space.
Yeah. It's what they described. It's the God key is you just never get to the bottom. The rabbit hole is endless. And yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. It's just like they talk about the atom. The atom is what? The mass of the atom is like 0.001%.
Yeah.
And the rest of it's just a bunch of nothing. Well, that nothing is something, right?
Yeah. That nothing is creation.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So, So now, when did you start? And for those of you who don't know, who are on here and who watch the replay, you've been doing a couple of shows like this a week for I think when we talked like 3 months. You jumped into this about 3 months ago. Is that right?
Yeah.
And let me ask you now, obviously, and I know we talked about this on your show. I think we did, or we did. I don't know when we did, but maybe we did it in the ethers. But I know you had, had a kind of a typical. I say typical because I don't mean to make light of it, because nothing's typical. But you had a stereotypical light worker type journey. A lot of the things people went through, and that type of thing. So I know you're also a practitioner, which I'd like to talk about because I'm sure people will be interested in finding out where they can get in touch with you and that type of thing. But what possessed you to get in there and start doing the show?
I have no idea. I just stopped planning my life. Life fell apart for me, Todd, in 2016. But it fell apart so completely that the image, if you imagine the picture of living in a castle, and then looking one day and realizing that you're standing in the rubble of what that castle once was, that was my 2016. My 2016 was tatters and shards of a life that I once lived.
Yeah.
And I realized, and it was also, by the way, the most healing thing that ever could have happened to me. But nevertheless, I realized then that I could never plan, and I could only be. And you see, we all know the stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's not good enough to know it. We have to get to that place where we live it and breathe it and apply it without even thinking, that it's so second nature that we don't even have to have a conversation with ourselves about it anymore. So one of the conversations that I no longer have with myself is why? Why do I do this? I don't know. I just do. So I literally woke up one day and I thought, that would be a good idea. I should interview some people because, this is how it started. I thought to myself, South Africans and Southern Africans in general tend to be very quiet. And the analogy I use is this: if you watch American Idol, God forbid, but if you did watch something like American Idol, what you would see are people, whether their voices are great or not, you would see people who are generally pretty comfortable on a stage. It's something in the American culture, it's something in the American way that I don't think Americans see, because you can't see it from the inside. But looking from the outside in general, Americans seem to be very comfortable on a stage. And I say this in comparison to Africans on a stage, because when you put Africans on a stage, they're not confident. It doesn't matter how amazing their voice is. Watch South African Idol and you'll see what I'm talking about. They just have no stage presence. They have nothing magnetic about them, nothing charismatic about them. So they're the opposite of our Northern Hemisphere cousins, Here in the Southern Hemisphere, and I speak specifically of Southern Africa, there's an aversion to the stage. So what I realized is that Southern Africans don't speak, they don't put themselves out there. And so a lot of the consciousness that we have here is very quiet, profound, but quiet. And I realized that I wanted to give a voice to that. So that's how it began. I started just speaking to a couple of Southern Africans. And then I realized, but wait, I want to speak to this American friend of mine and that Canadian friend of mine and that Japanese friend of mine. And so it became a global thing. But that's really actually how it started.
Wow. That's awesome, man. Big props on that too. Big time. And so, and you know, that's true. It sounds like 2016 reminds me of that other meme where the statue of the angel's got like its hand up in the air and it's holding the purse or is about to spank the human. When your higher self's had enough of your BS, it's game time now. Because I mean, I know quite a few people that had the traumas or the watershed moment later, later, what, you're 4 years after the 2012 or whatever. But, it's really nothing linear. It's all really kind of happened at the same time. But the main thing is you're doing it now. We're all doing it now. Have you go ahead.
As much as I had always done it, I mean, I'd only ever been a light worker. I'd had a 5-year stint in the corporate world, and that only began, my move into the corporate world began because I was doing a meditation course for people, and somewhere, I think I was about 20. I was about 20, 21 at the time, and I was doing this meditation course, and one of the participants said to me, Kerry, you'll never understand what we go through. You can't relate to it because you've never been in the corporate world. And something in me has this rebellion radar that when somebody says you can't, I go, oh, yes, I can. Watch me. And so what possessed me, I don't exactly know, but I went into the corporate world just so that I could relate to people better, to my clients better. And I intended to stay there for a few months, but 5 years later, I came out.
Did you come out an alpha male? Did you get affected by it?
I don't even know who I was. I knew who I was when I went in. And who I was when I came out was, I lost myself. I was unrecognizable to myself 5 years later, yet I was very successful. I was praised by the world. On a material level, I had done phenomenally well, and that's what had sucked me in. But I came out so empty and so devoid of consciousness. So, so I've always been a light, other than that 5-year stint, for more than 20 years, I've been a light worker.
Well, if you were doing meditations at 20, you're way ahead of this heathen. I was doing other things at 20. That's cool. And so you've been doing like 2 shows a week, right? It looks like you do them like on Thursdays and I think Tuesdays or Sundays or something.
I do Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday.
Yeah. Now, do they have because I know, now, are you in Johannesburg?
No, I stay near to Cape Town.
Okay, Cape Town. Yeah, because I know a few people from South Africa has a pretty good representation in Soulology, but as far as people I have done collaborations with, like and Rita Melchizedek and Judith Cassell's there. I know you've been doing some shows with Colin Burney.
Yeah.
He did some shows with Jeff Cloud on the Soulology Network, and I know a couple of other. I can't think of the names, but I know quite a few people. Is there a conscious community active there? Or is it all virtual on the internet?
It's not very virtual. South Africans are quite averse to, in general, obviously I'm generalizing, but in general, the majority of South Africans are quite averse to connecting in this way. So they do a lot of home meetups. There's a lot of very small little community groups that meet up. So that's more common than the virtual connections like this.
Yeah.
But there's a lot.
And do you enjoy doing it? You like doing it? The shows?
You know what? It's the shows I love doing. I love connecting with people virtually. It is my most favorite way of connecting with people. And there's a funny story to how it got to be my favorite way. So I've always, the two things I've always done readings, and I've always taught meditation. And that was always to physical, in-person groups, and people would come to my house and I would do consultations. And over the years, a lot of South Africans, due to the political climate of South Africa over the years, a lot of my client base immigrated. And as a result of them immigrating, they wanted to connect with me, either to meditate with me or to have a reading or whatever it was. So I learned to connect with them via Skype and Zoom and things like this. But I don't think I would have done it had I not been kind of pushed almost, because I had to follow my client base. My client base was all going overseas. So I began to do that. But this is the amazing thing, is when I started working with people virtually, I realized, certainly for readings, that I connect with them deeper because the physical body is not with me.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, for a reading, I have a blank screen. I don't want camera on. I don't see their face. So I don't know what that person looks like. All I've got is their voice. And it works exceptionally well for me to just feel who they are. I close my eyes.
Yeah, all energy.
And and it's the same on webinars and groups like that, where I'm not seeing the people, but I feel such a profound connection to each one of their hearts.
Yeah, I can relate to that, and you're right, because there's like you said, the body's not there, so there's no self-consciousness, self-judgment. Oh, is there something on my face? Stuff like that.
You could have spinach in your teeth and I wouldn't even know.
Yeah, I've done that. I've done it all. I've done it all. Well, I used to wake up in the studio and just turn the phone on, come out of dimension and do a video, and I'm like, that was good. And then a day later, I'm looking and there's like dry skin on my face, or mucus in my eye. Oh well. Now you've been doing meditation and sessions for always, right? So I mean, and you said soul reading. Are you familiar with Judith Cassell?
No.
And okay, yeah, she's very, very good. She's been around a long time. I've done a couple of shows with her. Incredible, but she does soul reading. She did one for me as a gift, and it was very, very interesting. That type of session work, and then the QHHT, I find very, and really all the energy work, because for anyone that's done a lot of it, and I haven't, but anyone who's done a lot of it, like you or Morgan and many, many of our friends, they get a really good, kind of like the work that Dolores Cannon did or Allison Coe, where they put the collective experiences of their clientele to kind of give a collective explanation of what's going on, has gone on, or will go on, basically. So have you seen an involvement in your clientele's stories and sessions over the last year? This has been a hell of a year.
Hugely. The conversations are beginning to shift, and I reached a point where I had said to my husband, this is it, I'm done with readings. I'm done. And I've done readings for, I don't even know how many years, way more than 20. I think about 25 years. And I said to him, I'm done with readings.
Since you were 5 years old, you've been doing them?
Yeah. No, 3.5. No, I'm 43. I'm 43 now. So I actually started at the age of 12, because I had an amazing mom.
Wow.
Who just said, when you're 12 years old and your mom is your world, and your mom says to you, you have healing hands and you can heal people, whether you understand what that means, whether you understand what the mechanics of healing are or not, you just go, oh, okay, because your mom said so, it must be true. So I did start really, really young, but
I do that too. Yeah. Well, we're talking about the evolution of the change in your clients this year. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So I said to him, I'm done reading. After all of these years, I'm done. And he said, why? And he was quite horrified. And I said, because I cannot do another reading for people where they're saying to me, what about my marriage? Or will I get married?
Yeah.
Or, will I have money? And will I buy a car?
Yeah.
And superficial,
Yeah.
meaningless.
Get the crystal ball out
Yeah,
and the
like,
chicken feet.
and I always say to people, I am psychic, but
Yeah.
don't you dare ask me to do a psychic reading for you, because I will not underestimate anybody
Yeah.
in that way.
Yeah.
Because the
It's
moment you
disempowering. It's disempowering.
completely, it's utter nonsense. It's completely disempowering, and people are not. If a person were really empowered, it might be a different story, but a disempowered person cannot have a psychic reading. It's not okay. It
No.
really creates imbalance for the reader
Yeah.
as well as for the client. It creates imbalance.
Yeah.
It's not okay.
And if the
So
reader
I think,
disempowers the client, yeah, it's the same thing. If you get a crystal
yeah,
ball out and say, I can do this and you can't do it.
yeah, yeah. And I'm telling
So,
you who you are. I mean, imagine the arrogance of me telling somebody, listen, this is who you are.
yeah,
But I want to help them touch that for themselves. I want to give them the
yeah,
experience. I don't want to give them the words. I want to give them the experience. So anyway, I say to them, I'm done, because people keep asking me, no matter how many times I tell them, this is not what I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you soul perspective. I'm going to give
yeah,
you the purpose and the reason for your life. They would go like this, Todd. They would go, yeah, but. Yeah,
yeah,
but.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah,
yeah, but tell me about my husband. Da, 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 da,
yeah,
da.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like,
I
oh, I
know that
can't.
drives me crazy, and I'm not taking shots at anyone or anything because
No.
I feel like at the end of the day, we're all probably beating at the same vibration. It just doesn't look that way.
Yeah.
But and I've had to invocate and integrate and accept into my heart this energy because it's really
Yeah.
about me. It's not about them. But
Yeah.
these, and I'll even have it on my shows. People will say, can you contact my departed one, or can you tell me if I'm going to meet my boyfriend? And then I see like 80 people on these lives, and they're all getting. And I'm thinking, what is that? I mean, the mark, like working with Morgan. Morgan's been a practitioner for 20 years, just like you, and it was she never did anything for me. She just showed me what to do. You know what I mean? She did what you just said, and that was to put them in touch with
Yeah.
that infinite part of them, and so that's really that's really
Yeah.
commendable that you.
Yeah.
But you stayed in it and you were telling the story. You stayed in it this year. Was it because you saw a change in people?
I saw a change. I saw for the
Yeah.
first time this year. For the first time this year, I've seen a change. And the change is that people have a real, genuine thirst to know, who am I beyond
Yeah.
all of the material, superficial stuff.
Yeah.
Tell me about the real essence of who I am. And that's a shift.
That's right.
That's a mental shift when people start asking and genuinely wanting to know that more than wanting to know about the potential promotion, or is my husband having an affair, or whatever. And I'm not putting anybody down. I'm not putting any of my clients down that ask those questions. Those questions
Well, that's
are
human.
human.
Yeah. Yeah. And
They're completely human. But if a person's willing to rise beyond wherever they are, um, that's where I would rather go, into the
yeah.
depth of
Yeah.
their essence.
Now, when you do soul readings, I know like Judith did one for me, and it talked about. It started with, like before galactic, kind of thing, and went through galactic and onto the Earth incarnations and that type of thing, and it resonated a lot. I look at everything more of that. It's more metaphoric, I mean, for the
Yeah,
human to understand. So I don't really get caught up in the literal part of it. But
yeah,
now, are yours like that? Yours sound more like, and actually hers did also encompass what you were referring to earlier, which is what I'm asking you about. In that this is it's kind of like what you did in all those lives or incarnations is really
yeah,
kind of what you're doing now. You know what I mean? And that's how mine was. And I think that's how they go. But basically, this is what you do. This is who you are. And, this is kind of your mission. Are yours like that?
because I don't know her and I don't know what hers are like. I don't know if it's exactly the same, but what I do when I connect with a person, I have a very funny and potentially unique way of connecting with them. And so what I do is I say to them, what is your date of birth? And the moment I ask them that question, they automatically go, oh, she's doing numerology or astrology or something like that, which I definitely am not doing.
You're a Pisces, man. You're a Pisces, and yeah.
And therefore, that's everything that I am not resonant with. You're a Pisces, and therefore blah blah blah. So I take their date of birth, and the moment I write down their date of birth, I'm connecting with their entry point to this incarnation.
Wow.
And that's a very sacred moment.
Yeah.
Their entry point to this incarnation is a very sacred moment, because as they come in, they're intact. And it gives me a sense of that wholeness that they came into this life as. And then I kind of, the best way I can describe it is I get in on the slipstream of that energy.
Yeah.
And of that wholeness. I get in on the slipstream of that energy. And in there, I feel my way into the higher dimensional self of that being, into the multidimensional self of that being, which is the soul. And then I begin conversing with the soul. But how the conversing happens is I just sit in silence for about 3 minutes with that person's soul. And sometimes I cry. Sometimes I'm moved to tears because I feel the fullness of that being. Like the real profound infinite truth of who that being is.
Wow, that's profound. Yeah.
And then the work starts. Then the hard work starts, because now I need to relate to that person what I've just experienced them to be without disempowering them.
Now,
and
have you... Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah. So I start just by asking them, is there a field of focus that you want? Because let's get that out of the way first.
Yeah.
let's get the superficial stuff out of the way so that we can go deep. And then I go into explaining to them the bigger picture of who they are. And sometimes that includes where they've come from. But I don't want people to go like, for example, oh, I'm a Pleiadian. Oh, I'm a Sirian.
Get stuck on the story. Get stuck on the story.
Exactly.
I was Merlin's, wife.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. And I was blonde and I wore a red dress, because it doesn't matter.
Have you ever had when you come in, which I think is profound. I don't even have to get an answer, because I know this was all self-developed, from that beginning at 12, and I can see it energetically. But so you go in at the point of origin in this incarnation. Have you ever run into a situation where somebody was a walk-in? I wonder how that would look in the energetic field. You know what I mean? Because I recently had a kind of a second, a friend of mine kind of brought it to my attention that I can't say, was I a walk-in, but I remember now this moment when I walked in, you know what I mean? So how would that, I wonder how that would affect that method. I guess you would still be connecting with the soul though, wouldn't you?
Well, this is how I've experienced them. And people teach me all the time because their souls are so different. But this is what I've experienced with walk-ins. I've experienced the connection to the soul, and then I watch the soul connecting to them, the human body, and then I realize somewhere, maybe it's at the age of 16, maybe it's at the age of 28, whatever it is, I realize somewhere there's a walk-in. But what the walk-in looks like to me is another facet of their own multidimensional self. Therefore, I think people hear walk-in and they think it's somebody separate.
Yes.
Like somebody else. Somebody else's soul. But walk-in, in my experience, is only ever another facet of your own multidimensionality.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Like bring in the bring in the big guns. It's getting rough down here. But that's true too. I mean, I was going to say that's true too with this past summer, Morgan and I had what people might refer to as visitation, right? And in one of them, the room filled, and I would say, like, I don't know, 10, and they were somewhat materialized. I could see through them, but I could also see the definition. I could see their face and that type of thing. But two of them walked into me, like walked around me. They walked around the bed and were looking at, where are you going? You know, and I felt them come in, but I knew it was okay. And I realized later, I really realized at the moment, you know, but more at a deeper level later that well, actually there was a Syrian aspect, because later I was told, and that one was an Alpha Centaurian, but these were aspects of myself. So even in, apparitions, if you want to use that term, these are most likely going to be aspects of ourselves, or really probably in all cases. What do you think?
That's all I've ever experienced, is another aspect, no matter how different. Because sometimes people even say to me, I know that I'm a walk-in and I know when it happened, and I go back there, but I still don't feel that this is a completely other soul. This only ever feels to me like the vibration's got to match the body, you see. So it can only be another facet of the same multidimensional being. And I think because we're so linear, we think in terms of linearity, like I have one soul and I'm one expression of that one soul, but that's not the case. There can be many physical expressions of the same soul on this planet and different planets happening simultaneously.
Yeah. And that goes back to what you said at the beginning of the show too, which I wanted to expand on. And that is that, you know, again, we get to the small and the bigness of the human, but everything that we're doing here is having repercussions throughout all dimensions. You know, this is really more, this is in my opinion, but it's as I see the energy and I receive my communication, which is just my universe, is that this is a universal correction. It's not just an earth correction. This is a universal correction that's going across all dimensions. I guess in the way I explain that to myself is that we're moving to the one and only pure timeline without distortion. And that involves all dimensions coming into alignment. Do you feel that, I don't know, this is even an answerable question. Do you feel that we are the center of all of our aspects here in some way?
Oh, that's a good question. Wow. Do you know what? Yes. Yes, I do. And I'll tell you why. That's an astounding question you've asked, Todd. I love the way your mind works, that you could even ask me that question. But yes, I do, because what I've been taught so many times is that when higher dimensional beings come here into this density, this lower third dimensional density, our linear human brain says things like, oh, either I did something wrong, or I'm being punished, or, you know, things like this, because we see lower as worse. But so often what I understand through my readings and my connecting with my soul and other people's souls is that this is where we get to truly change reality. It happens here on the third dimensional level. And like I said earlier, it ripples up.
Yeah.
So because of that, we're bringing our higher dimensional selves in here in order to correct or recreate or reestablish creation itself. We do not get to make those corrections at the higher levels.
Yeah.
We have to come down into the point of the original creation.
Yeah. And that resonates well.
And so I definitely do think that the human body, in an almost unbelievable way, this human third dimensional being is the center, at least the center, the focal point for our multidimensional higher self.
To me, it's almost like you know, it's a spiral, you know, like a spiral, like a three, and then like and so because it's not linear, and it's like galactic, futuristic, past, all that stuff is actually, if we had to try to describe it, or I'm trying to describe it, it's the past, you know, like the future is the past, and the past is already the past. And here we are going back to the present, which I don't know. It's just, it's like we're going back to, I see what's happening in my life and the lives of other people. And it's like the thing that happened to you in 2016. And I'm sure the things that have happened since then were this unseen hand of providence is just moving stuff out of the way. Like, I don't know why I started doing shows. I was just told to do it. I don't know why I came to Kauai. I hadn't never even heard of Kauai. I didn't know. I thought Hawaii was just a big island, but had 7 islands. And, you know, why did I come to Hawaii? I was settling down in Sedona, and I thought that's, you know, it's just like snap, it's done. You know, it's like we're on automatic pilot or something's happening here. And it's amazing. It's amazing to collaborate with you too, because I enjoy talking to you. It's really cool. Now, you do you have a website, or do you work strictly off Facebook?
I have a website, and it's I describe the I remember moment, the I remember who I am moment, as my Samadhi experience. So what Samadhi means, Samadhi is a Sanskrit word, and it means at one with. So it's the best way that I can explain it. It's that moment where you move into the memory of your multidimensional infinite self. That's the Samadhi experience in the best way that I can explain it. So because my Samadhi moment was the most life-changing moment of my life, I used that as my website name. So it's www.samadhispeaks.com.
Very cool. Samadhi, that's what that means. I'm trying to think of my Samadhi moment, but I think it was when my journey started a few months. It was about, I think it was about 6 months into my spirit walk when I was expanding on the streets. And I think it was when I had been in this, and there was like these 3 cowboys and it was 3 against 1. And I had 2 of them under control, but I didn't see the last guy. He was like 6'4", about 240 pounds, and he roundhoused me. And I hit the ground. Bam! My head hit the ground, and I remember hearing this voice, "That's enough." And I thought, "Oh, okay, wait a minute. I'm not this person. I'm something much bigger than that."
Wow.
Do you ever feel like lately? To me, I think we take things way too seriously. Definitely. And I know I've been guilty of that. And I was guilty of that 10 days ago. I'm in Hawaii. I didn't walk out the door for 5 days. I'm trying to put this network together and work. Yeah. And, but almost like we drop ourselves into a video game.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm in this video game, and it's like, everything is lines and ley lines and grid lines and sacred geometric figures. And I'm walking around here looking at the jungle or the beach or the cliff or the mountains. And I see the natural, what we would call the nature aspect of it. But at the same time, I see like these like, like this grid, basically. Do you ever feel like do you ever feel that way?
Oh yeah. God, yeah. For years now. In fact, it started in 2012. I was sitting in the lounge with my husband, and we were just sitting. Don't even think we had this amazing thing, Todd, of, and maybe you and Morgan Lee and people who have really conscious relationships, even with friends, you'll have this, where you can just sit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not because there's something to say.
Yes. Yes. I totally relate to that, man.
It's the best. So we're literally just sitting, and in that silence there is such intensity, and there's such power and presence, and we were just there. And I said to him, "Honey, is it just me, or is the carpet moving?" And he said, "Oh, are you seeing it too?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, you're seeing through the veil." Yeah. And we looked around and we both went, "Oh my God, the walls are moving too. It's not just the carpet."
Yeah.
And it was like waves. And ever since then, if I go into stillness with my eyes open, I see, for me, it's not grid lines, it's waves, it's movement like this. And it looks as if I could put my hand through it. It looks as if I go right through the wall or the floor or whatever it is. I've even had vertigo. The experience has been so real that
Yeah.
my floor wasn't solid, that I actually felt
Yes.
like, oh my God, I'm going to fall, because it
Yeah.
was such an intense experience. But I think that we're seeing the very fabric of
Yes.
creation.
Yeah. And it's like we're being given as much as we can take at the time. And but I've noticed it's pushing a little bit further lately. And I think I may have talked about this on your show, but I where my friend lives here, where I'm renting a room, I can walk down to this lagoon in like 10 minutes. And I walked down there the first day, and it was getting near dark, and I sat there, just chilled out, and I looked over in the jungle, and I saw this cave, man. And there's like all these fairies in there and all these colors. And like, I see a lot of waves too. I don't see like the
Right.
lines I was describing. I was just seeing I don't know, the grid of I don't know, however it's made, whatever you want to call it. Ones and zeros and the lines in sacred geometry. But anyway, so I looked over and I see this cave, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, am I seeing this? Are those fairies? Are those colors? I've never seen those colors before. And I'm looking on the cave wall, and I'm seeing all these hieroglyphics and shit. And I'm like, what the hell is that? Am I seeing this? And the way it was set up, there was a lot of leaves and foliage, and I couldn't really go in there. And there was also water. I couldn't really go in there very easy. And to be quite honest with you, it was so powerful. I wasn't afraid, but I thought, I ain't walking in there. I ain't going in there. I'm going to check it out for a while, but I'm not going to walk in there. And then I ended up having that merging I referred to earlier with a reptilian. And it was a very powerful experience. But my point is, I went back because the cave's like, we know you ain't coming in today, but you're going to be coming back. This is a universal portal. Today, this is a lesson. We have to bring in the dragon energy, reptilian energy, draconian energy. This is part of unity consciousness.
Wow.
and kind of thing. So I go back in the middle of the day, and I'm over there looking, and I'm walking in the water, and I'm going through the bushes, and I couldn't find it, but I know it was there. I know it was there, and I was vibrating very high at the time, or maybe the island was showing it to me or something. But you're right. There's more and more of that happening, and the other thing that's cool too is, like with you and your husband, 2 or more are experiencing it. And that's like the Tesla math. I mean, that's like the boom, boom, the boom, 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 So I kind of feel like that's what we're doing. Do you think that there's now occurring, or are you seeing this occurring through your friendships and your contacts, of where people are actually physically coming together, like people talked about it for a long time, like Soul Tribe, that type of thing?
Do you mean like living in communities?
Just meaning like they're in the same location, and again, how I got here, I don't know. And I'm not just speaking to myself. I'm talking about some people I know around the world. I mean, do you think that's does that make sense? I mean, we're integrating polarities. Ultimately, the well, at least one of the most prominent polarities is the human, or the physical and the non-physical, which we both are. And integrating, would that make sense? Are we actually going to come together as soul tribes? I don't know. It's just interesting.
It is. It really is interesting, and I think it's important what you're asking, because it's another big wave of energy that's come in, and it's part of the 2018 energy, and that is reclaiming. You see, we could look at it as the end result. The end result is reconnecting with our tribe. And people would hear that and they'd go, oh, yay, in 2018, I'm going to reconnect with my tribe, goody. But the beginning of that ultimate end experience of connecting or reconnecting with the tribe is deeper connection to self.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Which, again, that would make sense. Yeah. I mean, your internal expansion is magnetizing an external like vibration, or however you want to put it.
Yeah. So if we've been doing that, if we've been walking that journey towards connection to self and embracing our wholeness, coming into our alignments, coming into our balance, coming into our stillness, if we've been doing that, the happy byproduct of that, so not the goal, but the byproduct, is the reconnection to our tribe.
Yeah.
And, one of the most sacred experiences that has ever happened to me was, number one, connecting with my husband. Because when I did, it's probably like you and Morgan Lee, it was such a revelation of who else I had been in other lifetimes, and the opportunity to claim, because through him, so much memory came back from all the other places where we had been. But the other amazing connection for me has actually been this year, 2018. The other sacred connection of my life has been with Amanda Lawrence.
Wow.
And
that's one of mine too. That's one of mine too. That must mean that we're, that old equation, right? If A equals B and B equals C, then C equals A. So, yeah, no, she's mine. And I have many, 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 many close friends, men and women. But particularly she's like my closest, dearest sister. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. We've had a lot of great times together, experiences. I can see your connection. Yeah.
We had an amazing thing in that I invited her onto the show, and she came, and we met just 10, 15 minutes before the show, and we looked at each other, and we couldn't speak. We just cried.
Yeah. And that's the real deal, man.
we were going live like this. We were like,
yeah.
together. I mean,
man. Yeah.
But what it was this flooding relief. That's what it was about. It was the flooding relief of connection. And it took me a little while to realize why that connection was so profound for me. And for her, it's because what I recognized was not just a tribes member. What I recognized was that there was a parallel self here.
Yeah.
And the name that I've given her is Yumi, because she's the you and the me. And so she's my Yumi. And it's those levels of connection that aren't about creating exclusivity. I really want people to understand that, because we tend to do this with relationships. We tend to create exclusivity, which excludes everybody else in the world. And it's not that kind of connection at all. It's an inclusive connection that is the byproduct of the inner wholeness. And that's what I'm seeing people moving into, is those kinds. So whether it is with people next door or people on the other side of the world, which I think a lot of that is happening, a lot of the global connection is happening. It's important that it's a global connection, because we're these little lights all around the world that are tied together by these filaments, these plasma filaments of awakenness. So as I converse with you from the southern hemisphere to the northern hemisphere right now, and all around the world, there are those filaments of light that are being lit up as we connect to each other. So we're creating a new grid through these connections.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I say, my shows, my radio shows, when I start preaching, I always say, the only grid I'm concerned about, I mean, no disrespect to the Christ consciousness grid or this grid or that grid, is the one that we've created, because it's been created now, where we're holding energetic hands, and the human hybrid soul grid. I mean, that's the other thing too, because to your point, is any type of connection like this, or you and Amanda, or me and Amanda, or whoever, it actually ripples out through the divine holy matrix grid that we have formed by our experiential and akashic, energy that we have, and combined.
That's why we couldn't connect with these people before, for two reasons. One is we couldn't connect with these soul tribes people before, because as much as we wanted it, because I remember books and conversations and entire seminars devoted to connecting with like-minded people, connecting with your tribe. We all wanted it. We wanted either to live in communities or to just escape the world as we saw it, and be with each other. So this has been very prevalent, and a prevalent longing within the awakening community to connect with our tribe, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen in the way that we wanted it to and in the way that it is now, because number one, we would have woken up too soon. And we weren't allowed to do that. Our awakening, if it was too soon, would have upset the entire creation that we're sitting in right now. It had to be in alignment with Gaia awakening and with the collective awakening. So we were waiting for a very, very long time for these reconnects, because the reconnects remind us who we are.
Yeah.
So the one reason was that. And the other reason was we weren't yet able to connect to our own wholeness. And it was only when we could do that, and when we can do that, that the sacred unions can come in.
Yeah. Oh, that's good stuff, man. Now, when you're talking about sacred unions, I realize everyone that we come across, once we find or externalize the sacred union we have within ourselves with, say, another person, then it certainly makes it possible for us to do that with each and every person, you know. And we're talking, of course, sacred energy here, sacred, you know, not romantic, you know, although that's another thing. But I was going to ask you, I'd love to talk about that, but especially because you're in a divine conscious union. But I wanted to ask you, you know, Amanda and I had something in common this year, and this was independent of each other. I received, you know, for a long time that the month of September was the month of completion, right? And she had received it too. And so that came, and it seemed like that's exactly what occurred. And of course, October and November have been, you know, energetic, you know, balls to the walls. Excuse my French, but it's just been amazing. Now, what I'm getting at is, I think it's pretty obvious by now that that 2018 has been something that we could put our finger on and say, wow, this is what's occurring. You know, I'm seeing my clients evolve as a whole, and everyone's kind of seeing it. What do you think 2019 is going to be like?
Well, the first answer is 2019 is going to be what we created to be. And the second answer is that there is always, within the field of creation, there is always dominant potentials. And the most dominant potential that 2019 holds, and it's the one that I align myself with, is there's a very big potential in 2019 for rapid individual ascensions.
Yeah.
And a better way of describing that would be inscension, the process of awakening from the inside. Mm-hmm. So I feel like 2019 holds massive potentials for the collective consciousness, who will say, and it's beginning, you can see it, you can see ripples of it in the fabric of creation, where the collective consciousness is saying to the government, the governmental structures of the world, we want our power back. And that is beginning. If it continues, and I do see it continuing into at least February of next year, a massive uprising that's like dominoes that moves from country to country and mind to mind and heart to heart and consciousness to consciousness. That is the collective saying we want our power back. Based on that, it's entirely possible that full disclosure could take place as early as March of 2019. And that's not a prediction, it's just a possibility. Mm-hmm. There is a timeline where that happens, and I can see that timeline. And it's over the months of March and April of 2019 where the potential sits for full disclosure. And following that, there's a lot of star seeds who go, phew, my work here is done.
Yeah, I'm going to be drinking Mai Tais on the beach in Hawaii. Our work's done. Let them kids take it over now.
Let the youngins come in. But, you know, I say that with a smile, like we would say, okay, my work here is done. But actually, it's not. That's how we would feel. But actually what it would be the beginning of the next level of work.
Yeah.
Where we've always done this. Yeah. We've always held ourselves a few steps ahead of the collective consciousness, so that we're pulling the collective along. We're enticing them with higher frequency energy and giving them something to match. So whether we call them the forerunners or the star seeds or whatever we want to call them, there have been the beacons of consciousness who have all been doing this, stepping into their own awakening and enticing the collective to follow suit. But what would then happen once the collective moves into their full disclosure, which could be early 2019, those front runners would then say, okay, I now need to do this, the same thing, but from a higher dimension.
Yeah.
So I now need to do this from the fifth dimension, and I need to create that same stream of consciousness that people can kind of tag into and move towards and entice them to go beyond full disclosure into full awakening.
Yeah. I always see it like, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That would be our next level of work. So it's possible. So 2019 could see our next level of work come in.
Yeah. I always see it like, because seeing the energy and then trying to explain it. It's like, you get downloads and like, what did you say? How do you put that in words, And, but it's like, I see like the energy and I have to look at it like water, and there's like these doors. And so we open this door and the first thing I would say is that a lot of times we think these major doors are open by something that like some big global, event or some famous person makes this treaty but it's us. It's us. It's someone as simple as you and your husband opening the door of divine love, bringing divine love back to the earth. And what I see happens is like once the door's open, then like how water will run the path of least resistance, it kind of starts with little trickles and then all of a sudden it becomes a big flood. And I think that's kind of what I see when you describe that. I don't know. And I also am very aware of the thoughts that we carry in terms of how it's going to happen, that can actually dictate how it happens. Like, oh, I think there's going to be, the cabal is going to make like a big move and go boo. And they're going to have a hologram of Jesus over here and Buddha over here, Project Bluebeam or whatever, or fake alien invasion. I think we have proved this year too that we can do this with ease and grace. And I think that's been a powerful epiphany for me, that as the collective goes, so goes the individual, or at least the opportunity to fulfill the same potential both directions. But so I usually only go an hour. We've already gone an hour and 22 minutes. So you are definitely Amanda's sister, because her and I usually go about 2 hours. Are you okay for a few more minutes? Are you all right for?
I'm totally fine. I'm totally fine. Yeah, thanks.
Whatever
we think sorry,
No, you go ahead.
Whatever we think is going to look like, whatever we think, like you just described, the cabal's going to go boo, and then we're going to go bah, and then however we plan it, it's going to be nothing like that.
I know. Yeah.
It's going to be a total surprise.
Yeah. And I think, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
I want to share just a really cool story about 1994 in South Africa. So 1994 in South Africa was a very important year, because it was the year that Nelson Mandela was released from jail. It was also the year that he became the new president.
Yeah.
And prior to the referendum that allowed him to be released from jail, every single white, black, colored, and Indian in this country went, civil war is inevitable. I remember reading magazines and newspapers, and it was what you had to buy to prepare for civil war, what it was going to look like, where hideouts were going to be. Every single person was very well aware, and the tension was high, that we were on the brink of civil war. And many could say that South Africa right now is once again on the brink of civil war, but that's more like a result of global consciousness. Nevertheless, there we were in 1994, and Mandela was released from jail. And I was in London at the time. And many people said to me, oh, it's so great that you're in London right now, because you're going to get refugee status because your country is going to go to war. And it was quite a confusing thing, because I never felt that war inside of me. And the most astounding thing happened. Nelson Mandela came out of jail and everybody celebrated.
Yeah.
Everybody just, I don't know if it's because they saw that man and the peace that he was exuding,
Yeah.
or I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But just in an instant, the war talk stopped and the peace talk started. And what
That's
once
powerful.
seemed to be
Yeah.
clear, it was like a clear, definite reality. It was such an absolute. It was only a question of who was going to spark it. It wasn't an if, it was a when. And it became the most peaceful and abundant time in South African history. People embraced and loved each other for the first time in my experience. So it was really a living example for me of how we can change a timeline.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, because I'll be 57 Sunday. And so I grew up in the late 60s, those incredible years, 67, 68. And so you saw the same type of impression being made by an individual such as Mandela with the Malcolm X and Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King and so on. The difference I see now is it seems like to me that this same type of consciousness or energy has increased and maybe you call them star seeds or whatever. It doesn't really matter. Souls walking the earth, and it's actually not in the headlines. It's happening out there, away from all the notoriety for the most part. I think we're starting to get some element of mainstream, but that mainstream's being like a new mainstream, like what we're doing here, and people that do this type of thing. But yeah, so I think, it's like some people say, well, there was a Jesus during this time, there was a Buddha during this time. I think we've got a whole bunch of them on the earth now.
And think about the impact that one Jesus had, and that one Buddha had. This was one singular being that we're aware of that attained a higher consciousness. Now think about it, because it's such an exciting thing to consider. What happens when there's 10 Christ-like beings on the planet at the same time, and then hundreds, and then thousands?
Yeah. And then the other thing too is the divine feminine frequency, which which we've heard about the masculine prophets, and not very much said about the others. Kuan Yin in the East, but Magdalene and so on, and so many of them that were removed from the history. That energy's coming back. That's been a big, I think in 2017 and even in 2018, is to see the feminine energies such as yourself, many of them having done this work for many, many years in anonymity. And I speak to a lot because I ask a lot of people, hey, you want to come have a conversation? And I get a lot of no's, and not in a bad way, but what I'm hearing is, particularly from the divine feminine energies, is I know I'm going to have to do this. I'm being told I got to do this, but I'm not quite ready, or I'm ready to come on, that type of thing. So that's a powerful thing to bring. As you said, the world doesn't need healing. It needs balance, because it's just a reflection of each one of us. Right.
Yeah. And you talk with such reverence, Todd, about the divine feminine. And I see that with a lot of conscious men. They talk with such reverence about the divine feminine, but it always brings up for me a little bit of, I don't know what the word is, like a little niggle somewhere. But what about the divine masculine?
Yeah.
Because we have been really brainwashed with how bad the patriarchy was. We haven't created, for many of us, room in our hearts and our minds and our consciousness to not only embrace but encourage the divine masculine. Because the divine masculine got as bruised as tricked and as
Oh, yeah.
wounded, if not more so. And I get into trouble for saying that. I know a lot of people
No,
disagree
you're
with
right.
me, but
You're absolutely right. In fact, Morgan says, you know, it's not about, I guess I'm not trying to say, that she's saying that one had a tougher time than the other, but what she says is that coming out of it, you know, coming into our true nature and self and all that, is tougher on the masculine. But I will say, particularly over the last 2 months, and oh my God, so much this week, I have seen. I was talking to her about it today because she said, like, what do you mean? I have seen in both women and men, both within themselves and also what's been presented to them externally, in just like every day, multiple times, this split of like the old wounded masculine and then the new masculine energy arising. And I've seen that in women and men. And what I've seen happen is that this energy, which is not really related to our gender, although it's for the most part represented by our gender. What I'm seeing though is it's like saying, hey, you know what? I've had enough of that. That will not stand. And not the old wounded warrior, I'm going to kick your ass, but just say, hey, that is enough. That will not stand. So I think we are starting to see that. And yeah, and you're right though. I saw a great post by Miguel Dean today or yesterday. You're seeing these men who are stepping up, and what seems to be, to me, the most intriguing part of it, the most compelling part of it, is that they're, you know, people use the word vulnerable, but I'm talking about like ripped to the bone, saying, hey man, I have been through the mill and I'm coming back. I'm a divine masculine, and I'm getting more powerful every single day. And that's really cool, because the whole old masculine paradigm, the alpha male, the warrior, and all that, you know, hey, you know, all puffy and huffy. And when the reality is, it's just a little small wounded child inside that needed a big hug and show them where the real power is, you know. But it's good to see. Yeah.
It was obvious where men wounded and where men were the perpetrators. It was obvious. It was blatant. It was visible. But it was less visible where women wounded, where women were the perpetrators. It was more visible that they were the victims. That was more kind of what we saw on the surface. And so we tend to be very sympathetic to the victim, and we tend to hold blame for the so-called perpetrator. But we were both. We were.
You're right about that.
Both
Hallelujah.
sides. And so, and this is it's a, you know, even with men and with women, there are many people who get a little bit kind of edgy with me when I have this conversation. But I feel it so strongly that the men got so wounded by the woman, by the so-called goddess.
You're talking to one. He got his ass whooped many times, right? I had a tough time coming back to, and I guess, you know, as a reflection of the collective, my journey was, I was the very wounded masculine. I didn't trust the feminine energy, which means I didn't trust the feminine energy in myself, you know?
Yeah.
And I had to go through this whole journey of step by step, person by person, making peace with the feminine, and eventually experienced the divine union in myself. I would say that, you know. I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody else.
I would love to see them rising up without shame.
Yeah.
Without shame, because it's a role that for many of them was thrust upon them to be the dominant ones, and then and the perpetrators, and then society, kind of like the tail end of a snake, comes around and bites them for doing exactly the thing that they were brought up to do.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And you know, I was going to say, I had like, I don't know if you call them past life. I don't really have an opinion on all that. You know, I think it's more of like dipping into the Akashic or whatever you want to call it. But I had many things appear to me like movies, basically, you know, how that happens. And it was the masculine energy. And this was back a few months when I think it was starting to make a move. And it was like, to put it in human terms, it was like, okay, I'm a man and it's 1550 and I'm going to war. And I was there, and it was like, why am I going? I'm going for love. I'm going to make her proud of me. I'm going to be the protector for my family. And it was all this BS programming. Like you said earlier, the love we thought was what we thought was love was not. And here we are doing it for love, which is really just a replica of the whole vibration of all these imbalanced people, or we were where we were in imbalanced relationships. But yeah, so it was a hell of a you know, a hell of a job done to the mind there. And but like you said, it was both, you know, it was both equally, both were victimizers. Yeah,
it was on both sides. And I would love to see the goddess really uplifting the divine masculine now, to really into honoring of the divine masculine and compassion for the journey of the divine male. That for me feels like the appropriate next step to bring about true inner union and true inner balance.
Yeah. And I, like I said, over the last couple of weeks, here in my personal exchanges, I'm seeing something going on. I'm seeing what you're talking about. And it's interesting because I'm seeing it, that energy within women. Okay. You know, and men, but within women, where they're kind of doing what I feel like I did as a masculine, where I was like, okay, I trust you. You know, I'm going to do this. I'm going to keep taking these steps forwards. It's getting better, more alignment. But actually, you know, there was a part of the masculine in me, which I'm a representation, that was shut down to the energy of her. Right. And now it's kind of the other way around. I'm seeing where they're opening up to, because it's a different masculine than it was before, you know?
Yeah.
And they're actually seeing evidence of it. And when they see evidence of it, it activates and opens code within them, and the dance continues.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I want to ask you, since I do everything publicly. So I told myself I wouldn't talk about the network because I got on a linear thing. I'm like, deadlines. I'm like, we're going to do it. But we're really close today. Today and yesterday were really big days for this multiple channel network available on an app. And we made some huge strides today. And so our idea is it's not about me. It's just a platform. And the idea is to take people like you and like me and people that you know, as more and more people are doing this type of expression and broadcasting, to take them all to one URL address and give people an alternative that's out from under the matrix. I got my first strike from YouTube the other day. I probably would be. Yeah, right. Facebook has totally slapped me down. I mean, nobody gets my notifications anymore. I don't, you know, I don't share. It's all organic, and I've been through it enough to know what they're doing and all that. So, I would love to see your work expand and would you know, just open the door to you to support you and expanding it, because the idea behind it is basically we bring everybody to one place and then we integrate audiences and that type of thing. So that's an open invitation. And since you're Amanda's beloved sister and she's my beloved sister, then we must be something to each other.
A little something.
Yeah. And just on a personal level. So, and you're with your divine partner, and you live in South Africa. Do you have children in the house, or? Yeah. Oh, three.
Got three children, three very conscious children.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's another topic for another show right there, you know.
yeah,
These kids though, let's wind it out with this subject. But oh my God, I've got 6 kids, and I've been around some other kids. I don't want to say landlord, but she's my dear friend here. She has a 17-year-old grandson, and oh my God, these kids are just like, they just get it, you know. Now, some of them that are more, say, in the bigger cities or in the conditioning, they might be not know it as much, but they just got it. It's nothing has to be explained. All you got to do is, like you were talking about these virtual sessions you do, all you got to do is sit in a room and be near them. And it's like, you know, it's like galactic super codes opening up, and, you know,
exactly.
it's
They
amazing.
don't want the conversation. They do not want the conversation because they already know it. It's boring to now try and explain what they already know. It's the equivalent of, you know, talking down to somebody.
Yeah.
And they just want us to be it. And so when people say, how do you raise 3 children? I tell them I don't, but they're
Yeah.
doing a damn good job of raising their mother.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how I see the role of the children, that they are literally the ones bringing us up.
I agree.
Whether
I agree.
ready or not, they're the ones that are awakening us. They're the ones that are demanding our full participation in the universe right now.
Yeah. Yeah, they're it's amazing. And that's really, you know, in my own situation, my 2 youngest, I came off the streets and got them back after a couple of years, and their mom had died. And so I had them, and so they were like, you know, girls, and they're like 11 and 12, you know, just when the fun starts. And so I'm going through Ascension, and I'm doing the studio thing and doing Soulogy, and everybody thinks I'm crazy, but my girls are there, and we went through a lot of stuff together. And but my point is, when I began to allow their energy to flow, which would not be copacetic with society or family views or perspectives or opinions, uh, everything started to change. That energy helped me. That was the beginning for me, really, for me to make peace with the divine feminine energy, was through those 2 young girls. Yeah. So these kids are amazing, and if they can just, or we or they or us can keep their head out of this movie and let them stay in their magic. Yeah. But I agree with you. I think the day's going to come where, as we move further into this quantum experience, that we're just going to basically, like you kind of said about the star seeds, just kind of like that, let them take it over, you know, let them take it over. You know?
Yeah.
So
They're
what
just,
do you get?
you know,
Yeah, go ahead.
no, they're just not going. They see the way that we worked, the way that we did life, as the hard way around. They see it as so struggle filled, which I suppose it really was. And their brains are wired differently, and they're looking for the shortest, quickest way there.
That's right.
And they have a wonderful willfulness and a wonderful sense of impatience with them. So when they're the ones that are leading, man, things are going to shift quickly, because that's how they are.
Exactly.
They're very instantaneous, you know, and we look at that. An older generation tends to look at that and say, oh, you know, the younger generations just want instant gratification, and we see that as a bad thing. But it's very much in alignment with who they are.
It's
They
instant
know that we don't
manifestation.
need to go wrong.
It's instant materialization. It's not instant gratification. It's just like, you know, my little one, the littlest one, 4:44 a.m. in New York City. But the littlest one, I tell her, you need to do this and you need to do that. And she'd say, I do what I want. I do what I want. But the energy of the statement, she wasn't being disrespectful. She's like, I do what I want, you know. And you know what? She has. And in alignment, in expansion, and without instruction, you know. But it surprised me the other night. I talked to her, and she's going to be 17. And she said, hey, me and my friend did this kind of this card reading thing. And I was like, what? You know? And she says, yeah. And my mom came through, and my grandmother came through, and you know, got all this information. They were connecting, you know, they were connecting. And it was amazing. I never thought she would do something like that. So, well, you know, you cannot underestimate these these, well, I don't even want to call them children. Yeah. But do you have anything special coming up or anything? And when do you do your shows? Do you always do them on the same 2 days of the week?
Yeah, so Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, those are my 3 days. And my times are normally around about the same, which is about 5 p.m. GMT, which is around about noon Eastern time and 9 a.m. Pacific time.
That's right.
So around about those times on a Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. What I have got coming up, which I'm so excited for, I get like a child, you know, near Christmas, just that I can't sit still kind of excitement. So I've got that for Saturday because I'm doing a exclusive webinar with Colin Joe Byrne. Because Colin did an amazing show about, it could be 2 or 3 weekends, 2 or 3 Sundays ago. And he spoke about something called the 11th wave, which came in on the 15th of November of this 2018. And he spoke about what the 11th wave was. Now, Colin's got an amazing way of, for me, I understand things energetically, and he understands them on a neurological level. So we make a really good team because he can explain what I'm doing energetically and what I'm feeling energetically. So he's talking about what the 11th wave is for us. And I'm going to be doing a process with people on Saturday, this coming Saturday, the 8th, helping them to embody and literally, not to think it, but to feel and literally experience that energetic wave inside the cells of their body. Yeah. Because that's what excites me. It excites me when the lights come on for people, not because they understand it, but because they get it. They really and truly, on a cellular level, have gotten the ascension wave. Yeah. So that's happening. That's my big exciting thing that comes up on Saturday.
Interstellar. It's that interstellar you're talking about. You always want to go out. Let's go in. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. So that's Saturday. Be sure and put that in the. In the comments. And anytime, you know, I would encourage you to, especially after doing this show, anytime you post your shows, I would encourage you to post them in Soulogy, not because I have anything to do with it, but because there's there's a lot of groups out there. You know, we all know that. And then there's some groups are more active than others. And so there's probably have about 12,000 active, meaning active daily, you know, out of, I think there's 24,000 in that group. We have some other pages, but that's a pretty good group to put your post out. Cause I think you certainly we'd want to support you in expanding awareness of what you're doing, especially if you're doing 3 shows a week. It should move pretty fast. That's a pretty good pace. You know, that's a pretty good pace. That's a lot. And I know what that takes. It's a lot more than just sitting here talking to people, number one. And number two, the shows, like when you do them with a Colin, they're very activating, and it's like a download. You know, I used to do like 3 or 4 a day, and I'd be like, you know, I'd look like somebody, you know, like stuck my hand in a light socket. My hair's all frizzed out like Einstein, you know. People say, why don't you do another show? I'm like, man, I got to deal with the same energies everybody else is dealing with. And then I get activated on these shows, but it has gotten easier. It has gotten easier. And I think that's a reflection of what's happening collectively too, because even though the energies are coming in more powerfully, more frequently, we have what it takes to move through with more ease and grace. Yeah. But yeah, I'd love to collaborate again. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Whenever you'd like to. You. Now that I'm on the right time frame. Yeah. Yeah. So I missed. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say I missed. I don't even know I don't even know. I told you that I couldn't be on, right? That second time, or did I?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I did it
Yeah, you
because
did. You did.
sometimes I forget. I just didn't want to be disrespectful. I wanted to ask you. So yeah, I'd love to be on yours again. I'd love to collaborate with you on the Soulgy Network as a platform, and I'd love to collaborate with you on this show again too. So
Thank you.
just
Thank you. I have a very big resounding yes for that. Thank you, Todd.
yeah, right on. So I want to give you the best to your husband, and he must be an amazing man. Um, and then also your children, and thank you on behalf of the community and humanity for the work that you do, and just a big gratitude and honor and love from me personally. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much. It's been beautiful to be here. Thank you, Todd.
Yeah, we'll do it again. Take care, and maybe next time we can get Amanda on. We'll have three of us on here. That
Oh,
would be cool.
let's do it.
Let's do that. Let's put her on the spot. Okay, I'll see you later. Take care. Peace out, everybody.
Bye-bye.
I'll get you a copy of this so you can put on your
Cool.
YouTube or do whatever you want with it. I'll get it to you in the next 24 hours.